Welcome to this masterclass called Light Life. Whenever I start with my clients, we always look at how can you become lighter, and not necessarily physical, but overall in life. Like how can you release a lot of the weight that is holding you down to eventually go to another level. Whenever I work with my clients, they all want to go to another level, and they want more and more and more. They want a bigger life, they want a more successful business, they want more money, they want more freedom, they want all the amazing stuff. However, it's very hard to get there whenever you are heavy. And heavy meaning in life itself. If you have a heavy feeling, if life feels heavy, if your business is heavy, if you have a lot of difficult situations, like it's just really, really hard to become enlightened. That's the right word. And I'm not necessarily saying enlightened in a spiritual way. However, I also feel that if you want to become enlightened in a spiritual way, it's quite difficult if the practical life is very, very hard and very, very heavy. It's funny, when you look at nowadays, a lot of crazy stuff is normal, but it doesn't mean that it's natural. And I feel that for us, if we want to become lighter and lighter and lighter, become more happy and more fulfilled and also more successful, we have to go back to nature more. And I'm not just talking about like physical nature, like being in nature, but going back to a more natural state of being and a natural state of mind. It's so funny, like today, like these days, there's so many socially accepted addictions that we are highly addicted to. And because everybody is addicted to these socially accepted addictions, we think it's normal. And it is normal. Well, actually, I don't think it's normal. But it's definitely not natural. And then we wonder why, I don't know, like 50% of the people are taking antidepressants. Like if you would go back 100 years in time, and you would live in a natural way, do you think we would need do you think we need antidepressants? Or do you think a lot of the issues that we have nowadays, if you go back to 100 years, it's funny, I received a lot of pictures of my parents last week. And it's always funny if you go back like 40 years in time and you see videos or pictures, there's not a lot of people, for example, are overweight. Simply because at that time, when you went to the grocery store, like they had 2 flavors of chips, for example, or whatever. Now there's hundreds. And I don't know, it was just so much more natural. And if you go back to nature and you go back to a more natural state of being, a lot of the problems that we have, they are being dissolved. And from there, you can actually ascend to the person that you actually want to become. And the person that you actually want to become is probably just you in your natural state. I always say that you in your own energy is the most attractive thing there is. And you in your own energy, your own unique energy, is also the most profitable thing there is. So a lot of people that follow me and a lot of people that I help, they are in the business of being a brand. And what I mean with being a brand is, for example, every coach, if you're a coach or a consultant or a trainer or a speaker or an author or whatever, you have a brand. And if you have a brand, then basically you are an artist. So if you would perceive yourself as an artist, which I would suggest you do, imagine seeing an artist on stage. And the artist is thinking all the time and everything has to be perfect. How attractive is that? Versus a person who is very natural and really comfortable in his or her own skin. Well, we get uncomfortable in our skin because we become more and more unnatural and we just carry the world on our shoulders and we just really become heavy in a lot of ways. So today I'm going to share with you 23 different ideas on how to become lighter and lighter and lighter. I do have to say that a lot of these principles, these ideas, they are not easy to do. But I always say that if you're willing to do the hard things, life becomes easy. And if you're only willing to do the easy things, then life will become hard. So the light way is the right way. And that's how we're going to start off. So 23 ideas, but I want to introduce a story before we will start, because this has been a huge breakthrough for me in my own life. So I can remember back in 2008, I became successful in business. So in 2007, I became successful in business, and I sold one product, and this one product was called the Business in a Box. It was a bunch of binders and DVDs, and it was a €2,000 course, and I sold a lot of them, and it made me financially not free at that moment, but I was so much freer at that time, because all of a sudden I became, I just had way more money, which was amazing. And what I noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs is when there's scarcity, we also don't become really creative. We oftentimes become very rigid if we experience scarcity. The opposite is true as well. If you become successful, then all of a sudden, we see possibilities. And for me, the 2007 version of me, the unexperienced entrepreneur that all of a sudden started to make a lot of money, I started to see a lot of possibilities. So I literally went from like almost no team to 17 people within 1 year. And I went from selling one product, which was the Business in a Box, to selling 10 different products. So in 2008, I created all these different products. I created a dropshipping course back in 2008 with a lot of DVDs and CDs and binders. I made the Entrepreneur Starter Kit, a lot of DVDs and binders and CDs. I made the email marketing course, which was called the Business in a Bag, in a travel bag that we were selling with DVDs, binders, CDs. I was selling a time management course, which was funny because it was 10 CDs on how to become more productive. There was a lot of physical products that I created in 2008 and that we launched. We had Power Sellers Premium, a €97 membership. We had a €15 membership. I had the Momentum Method. It was a personal development course. And I did a lot of different seminars and did all these different things. And this was my belief. My belief was, if we want to expand, we have to create more. And we don't have a business if we don't have a backend. We have to upsell to our current customers more, so then eventually we can have a bigger business and be more successful. Well, that year we also grew, not just with way more products, but also in my team. I went from nobody in my team, almost nobody in my team, to 17 people within 1 year. And I mean, it's a way longer story, and I'm not going to tell the whole story. But at the end of the year, I was stressed out. I couldn't pay my bills. We were making the same amount of money that we made the year before, but now all of a sudden with 10 different products and 17 people, instead of just one product and almost no people. And at the end of the year, again, I was stressed out, couldn't pay my invoices, couldn't pay my taxes, couldn't pay my team. And I was like, how did I end up here? Like, what happened? And then I did something that I haven't done the whole year, in 2008. I looked at my numbers and I noticed that in my numbers, 65 or 70% of all the sales that we made, it was just one product. It was the Business in a Box that we sold the year prior. And so for all these 10 different products, could have been 12 or 15 different products, but for all these products, I had to create all the sales letters. I had to create the products. We had to buy everything. We had to have inventory. We have to do shipping. We had to do all this stuff. We had to do all the launches, all of this stuff to launch all of these different products. And I realized, wow, 65 or 70% of all of the money came from one product. However, we divided all our attention within those 10 different launches and 10 different products. And then I made the decision. I made two decisions. And the first decision is, okay, I'm going back to no team. Like if I have one right hand man, I'm good. So I took some time to eventually, you know, get back to one person. So I didn't extend any contract, and then I made a really, really tough decision. And again, if you are willing to make tough decisions, life become way easier. But this was definitely a tough decision. Imagine working for a full year, night and day, because I was working till 2, 3 in the morning to create all of these different courses and launch all these different products. And this was like my body of work, like all these binders, all these CDs, all these courses. And I made the tough decision to get rid of all of my courses. 10 different courses, millions and millions and millions of euros worth of courses. And we had like this distribution center downstairs. I was renting 2 floors and one extra floor at the on the first floor where all of our courses were that we actually were shipping out. And I decided I'm gonna quit selling all of these different courses, and I'm gonna do something very extreme. And we are going to just get rid of all of the inventory. Like again, over like millions and millions euros worth, millions of pages, tens of thousands of DVDs, CDs, everything. And I can recall on a Monday morning, we had to actually pay 300 euros for a garbage truck to come over and actually get rid of all of my whole body of work, millions and millions of euros worth of my products. And we just got rid of them. I had to pay to get rid of them. And then all of a sudden, it was the end of 2008, and all that was left was just one product. And I entered 2009. I finished 2008 by cleaning everything, and I entered 2009 very, very light, very light. And it was tough. It was very tough to get rid of all of that stuff. However, when it was gone, all of a sudden I felt liberated. I felt liberated because we didn't have to do all the complex stuff in the business. I felt liberated because I didn't have to be a manager anymore to these people that are working for me. And all of a sudden I could be creative again. So I entered 2009, and 2009 was one of my best years in life. I married my wife. We traveled for 5 months. I bought my dream home. My dream car. We actually bought a home, which was a mistake at that time, but okay, we all make mistakes. And all of a sudden, I was feeling so much lighter. And this is the year that I really, really learned, like, okay, the light way is the right way. I will talk today about how to practically become lighter. I will talk today about how to practically become lighter. What are the strategies that I use with my clients for them to become lighter? And what will happen if you become lighter? There is this opportunity for you to also become way more enlightened. Because it's very, very hard to become more enlightened if you just travel through life with all the excess baggage. So 23 ideas, and let's start. So the first one, and I always say the most important thing is to make the most important thing the most important thing. And the first one is a big business doesn't equal a successful business. So what I just talked about, I went from a big business, or not big, but like 17 people. It was significant. And I went from a lot of different products to just one person and just by myself, which was amazing. And all of a sudden, my small business was way more successful than a big business. And this is what I see oftentimes with a lot of entrepreneurs. I can recall one of the biggest talents here in the Netherlands in the fitness space. And he was one of the first guys who who was an online influencer in the fitness space. He was looking phenomenal, like six-pack abs, like being lean, being ripped. And just because of his physique and his way of thinking, he just blew up on Instagram. So he was one of the first big Instagram influencers here in the Netherlands. And we trained for like 2 years or something. And super interesting guy and very committed and also very entrepreneurial, but maybe, and for me it's the same, maybe not the best manager. Very creative, very profound, a lot of deep insights, a lot of knowledge, but maybe not the best person to work with a lot of different people. He should be a creator. That's how he blew up. Then all of a sudden he asked me like, Eelco, can we have a conversation? I was like, sure, let's go. So we had a conversation. He came to my office. He was like, yeah, I want to expand. Like, what do you want to do? And he was also one of the first people in the Netherlands that had an app and everything. Like, it was really, really good. And yeah, I want to expand. Like, what do you want to do? Well, we want to start a meal prepping company. I want to start a clothing brand. I want to start a gym. I don't know, and one or two other things. And I was like, I mean, these are really cool ideas. However, you're sitting on a pot of gold. Like, you're crushing it with your business. Like, you're really becoming really, really successful. You already are very successful. Why expand with way more products? Why not just scale to the moon? Because the market is there, the potential is there, and your brand is really, really amazing. And he decided to do what he felt he had to do, which was expand, start a gym, start a meal prepping service, start a clothing brand, do all the things. And what happens when business becomes heavier, we become less creative. So he started to become less creative. And his social media posts, they weren't as good anymore. His physique, he because of all the stress, because building a lot of those different companies, also those companies aren't really scalable. Like building a gym or a meal prep service or whatever, it's very hard to scale. The app that he had, where he was helping people to get in shape, extremely scalable. So things got heavier. He might not have been in the most amazing shape that he always was. So his social media post, it declined as well. And he got stressed out. He wasn't posting as much anymore. And a couple years after, he filed and not a couple years after, like 8 years after. It's probably been a struggle for like 8 years, and it was not a nice story. It was very, very rough for him. And this is an example of a big business doesn't equal a successful business. He had a small, easy, but very lucrative and very impactful business. Then he added way more stuff. And then all of a sudden his business is not successful anymore. So that's something to really consider. Like, if you want to grow your business, does it have to be big, or should you keep it small and make it light? And the lighter you make it, the easier it is for you to scale. So that's idea number 1. Idea number 2 is to close all open loops. And this is more on a personal/spiritual level. So I had one of my clients, and I knew him before he became my client. This is 2015, 2016. Before he became my client, I already knew him for like 10 years. We were friendly, and we met each other a couple times a year, and just really, really cool guy, really good human being. And I gotten to know him as a very creative, optimistic, free person. And for him, like, the sky was the limit, and yeah, like, life was really, really amazing. And then we sort of lost touch, because guess what he started doing? He started becoming bigger in his business, and also way more people and all that stuff, which was fine. And he had a lot of fun with it, and he was semi-successful with it, but also a lot of failures and also a lot of hardships. So then in 2015, he became my client, which, it's funny, in a strange way, if you're a mentor or a coach, it's actually cool if somebody that you know personally becomes one of your clients and decides to invest with you. There's something, I don't know. It's a beautiful thing, and so we sit down and I notice like, wow, there's a certain heaviness around him, and he was not as excited about business anymore. He was afraid to do new stuff because he's been hurt in the last couple of years, and he became heavier. Like his presence became heavier, and he wasn't as fun and as creative as he was before. And so we had the conversation, and he started talking about one of his ex-business partners. And we talked about it, and I noticed that there was a lot of heaviness around the whole relationship with one of his ex-business partners because it was still going. He didn't close that loop, and he should have closed that loop multiple years before, but he didn't, and it was still like in that whole dynamic. And then I asked some more questions. I was like, oh, and I noticed with him, he doesn't like to confront. So when things become rough or tough or complicated, he just leaves. He doesn't like to confront, he just leaves. So whenever we have an issue with him, and this is not ill will, it's not like that he is a bad person or but he just really has a hard time confronting. And when things are off, he just disappears. So I asked him questions about this, and then we came up with a list of 10 people in the last like 5 years or so that he had a relationship with. Could be an employee, could be a business partner, could be a client, that didn't turn out well, and he never had the conversation. He just ghosted them. It was one of his ways to cope with difficult situations. So I told him, well, I have a suggestion for you. And the suggestion for the next year that we're going to work together is I would invite you to the idea to close all of those loops. Because do you dream about those people? He was like, yeah, I dream about those people all the time. Do you think about them? Yeah, well, I try not to think about them, but they pop into my mind. If you walk on the streets here in Amsterdam, for example, do you think about maybe I run into one of those people? Yeah, well, that happens in my mind, that happens. It's like, wow, that cost a lot of energy, and those, that is keeping you heavy. Like those ideas, they're keeping you heavy. Those thoughts is keeping you heavy. And so he decided to make a really brave decision. And on a Tuesday afternoon, he sends out 10 messages to all of those 10 people. And he sends them a message like, hey, can we meet up for coffee? And I'll come to wherever you are. So I'll get in the car and I'll come to wherever you are. And 9 of the 10 people, they were actually happy that they had the conversation where they just discussed whatever happened and they solved whatever needed to be solved in that moment. And there was one person that didn't want to meet up or whatever, but he became 90% lighter in this area. So what you want to do is you want to check like, okay, do I still have open loops? And what's difficult is sometimes we have open loops that we can't close anymore. For example, if something happened with somebody that you haven't been able to close the loop with because, for example, they passed, even there's opportunity to close that loop as well, but that's more in a spiritual way, and maybe you can get help with that as well to do that. But it's very, very important if you want to become lighter to close all of the open loops in a practical way and sometimes in a spiritual or emotional way, but you don't want to carry that with you all the time, and this way you will become lighter. Third idea is you want to stop lying to yourself. And this is something that has been a big breakthrough for me personally. Like 6 years ago in 2020, August 8th, 2020, or August 10, 2020, I just had this profound, simple, but very powerful realization is that, wow, I'm lying to myself. Like my self-talk, it's just simply not true. Like most of the things that I'm telling myself, they're not true. But I wasn't so aware of that. And I started to dissolve that, okay, I'm going to stop all the lies. So, for example, a lie could be like anything you say, I am. I'm such a moron, for example. Well, are you a moron? Or I am such a this or this. Is that really true? Yes or no? And most of the things that we tell ourselves that are not positive, they're simply not true. And I have a cool video on my YouTube channel where I go through this with Justin. Justin, he had a tendency to lie to himself and talk down on himself, and I'll talk about this as well later on during this masterclass. But you really want to dissolve all of the lies, and I can talk about this for a long time. But I would suggest watch the video on my YouTube channel. It's called "Stop Hating Yourself," or you have to stop hating yourself. And we'll also put a link in the description to that video because it's a very powerful video where I guide Justin through basically just stop lying to yourself. And if you stop lying to yourself, you will become lighter and lighter and lighter as well. Number 4 is never let your light dim in exchange for money. So for example, if you could get a really high paying client, maybe the highest paying client ever, and he or she requires for you to dim your light, and dimming your light meaning follow their orders, or do what you don't really want to do or whatever. Just really have a clear rule that you never exchange your freedom or your lightness for money, even if it means that that life will become more difficult, but you don't want to break integrity with this. So never let your light dim in exchange for money. 5th one is you want to rent where you live. And it's funny, when I was sharing in the beginning that in 2008, outside of like expanding with all these products in my team, we also bought a house because that's a good idea to buy a house, which eventually was a big failure, and we lost a lot of money on that house. And I'm not traumatized by that whole experience. However, it was just unpleasant to have a home that you buy and then eventually you feel like, oh, we're gonna outgrow this, we want to live somewhere else, and then all of a sudden you have to, like, for months and months and months try to sell this thing, and then meetings with a real estate broker and this and this and this. I was like, well, like, why did I buy a house? Like, this is the dumbest thing ever. And since then, since 2008, I've never bought a home again. And I stand by this. If you know for certain that, well, let me put it this way: if you know for certain, like, that the house that you're in right now, you want to stay there for the long term, regardless of how much money you're making or how your life will evolve, yeah, buy the home. If it's your dream home and you'll be like, wow, this is really, really amazing. But if you would make 10 times more money this year, or maybe let's say you make 50 million next year because you do an exit of one of your companies or whatever, because we're here, because we're thinking in abilities. If you would, like, really, really grow with your business and make so much more money, would you still live in the same home? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, why would you want to buy it? Because it's actually, oftentimes it's like a cage. That's my perspective on buying versus renting, and I'm almost alone in this. All of my environment, they say, like, oh, you're wasting your money every month. And for me, it's like, no, I'm investing in my freedom every month. And whenever we feel that we're ready to go to another level, it's like this. But if we are attached to a cage because we paid for it, or we have a mortgage, or we still have to sell it, or whatever, you can't move forward in life. And today we're talking about how to have a lighter life. Well, if you're renting, you're way lighter. That's my belief. But do whatever you want to do. Number 6, you want to be willing to have the tough conversation. So another thing that can keep you heavy, and sometimes a little bit dark as well, is that things are going on in relationships. So maybe you have an issue with your sister or your brother or your father or your mother, or maybe a friend, or maybe a neighbor, or whatever it is. And what we do is we don't really confront it because we are uncomfortable with confronting, and we're afraid that something will happen when we confront. And what I mean with confront is just really have the conversation. Like, hey, I feel that something is going on between us, or I didn't really appreciate what you've done when we were doing X, Y, or Z, or did I mess up somewhere? Did I make a mistake? Because I feel that our energy shifted, whatever it is, whatever the conversation is. If you're willing to have the tough conversation, you will become more lighter. And what I would advise you to do is be more proactive with this. When you feel that something is off in a relationship and it's an important relationship, confront it. So like, hey, I feel something is off. The earlier you do this, and oftentimes we feel this when it's starting, but oftentimes we step over our intuition because, it's uncomfortable to approach somebody or confront somebody. So you have to be willing to have the tough conversation. The earlier you do this, the better it is. I'm in my mind, I'm searching for the saying. Yeah, you want to kill the monster when it's little. Like if something is going on, you don't approach it, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger if you don't proactively approach it. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more as well. Number 7, and I know this is very, there's no particular order with these ideas. I like this one. Start a fresh new journal whenever you are ready. If you know me well, you know I love journaling. Like these are my own journals. I got my white space journal here. I got my +1 journal here, which is really cool. I got my big visions journal here. We're selling these journals. You can buy them on my store. We'll put a link in the description as well. But what I do with my journals, what most people do is they journal and they get a new journal whenever they finish their journal. Because why would you start writing in a new journal when there's still white pages left? And what I do, and this is a small thing, but I thought it might be valuable for you. What I do is I start a new journal whenever I feel okay, this is a new season, or I want to think new or whatever. I don't want to carry my old thoughts and ideas and goals and dreams with me. I just want to start clean today. Today, I'll buy a new journal or I get a new journal and I'll start writing in a new journal. So a lot of my journals, let's say if there's 200 pages in a journal, some of my journals only have 30 written pages. But I feel this color journal, it's not my vibe right now. A month ago, it was my vibe, but now I feel I want to be more lighter or more colorful or want to more focus. So it's going to be dark blue or whatever it is. Just start a new journal whenever you're ready. Don't drag your old ideas into the future. And it could be maybe you're in a very intense period where there was a lot of struggle, a lot of stress, a lot of problems, and then all of a sudden you feel a relief and you feel I wanna keep this behind me. Well, get a new journal. Just get a new journal. You will become lighter. Number 8 is something. I think this is interesting. It's very popular nowadays, especially on social media. You see oftentimes ask this prompt. Put this prompt in your ChatGPT and it will tell you your future self, or it will tell you who you are. It will tell you what you should do or whatever. And then people put in the prompt and oh, wow, this is so amazing. ChatGPT knows me so well. And what I say is it's really cool and it's very unique, obviously, that we live in a time where this is actually possible. However, ChatGPT knows all about you up until now. And up until the moment you started with ChatGPT up until now. And it will keep reminding you of who you were. But what we want, if you're in my world, what we want is new realities. And it's very hard to create a new reality when you are dragging your past into the future. And I feel that ChatGPT is really good at reminding you, not necessarily of who you can become, but who you were. And it's ingraining in you your past self. And what you want to do, you want to have a clean slate. So there's an idea is to delete your ChatGPT account and start a new account. And it's very hard for a lot of people to do because they know, but I've built all of this knowledge and ChatGPT knows exactly who I am. Well, maybe that is the problem. What would it be like if you can start over again? It's an algorithm. You're in your own algorithm that you've built in the last couple of months or couple of years. But if you want to start new and create something new, consider deleting your ChatGPT account and start a new ChatGPT account or another LLM, whatever it is. Number 9, I really love this, is be possessions poor and cash rich. Like having few possessions, it's such an amazing feeling. And being cash rich is obviously also an amazing feeling because it's very liberating. If you don't have a lot of commitments, if you don't have a lot of possessions, if you have a clean calendar, an overall clean calendar, and enough money in the bank account, well, practically you're free. Not sure about your emotions or your spirits or whatever, but practically you're free and practically you're way lighter. And I think this is a good goal to have, to be possessions poor and cash rich. And this is also what I help my clients with, is I help them purge. I help them get rid of most of their possessions. One of my clients, she owned, I think it was 1,200 domain names. And so that's a recurring 15,000 a year. That's a recurring $1,300 a month. What are you going to do with 1,200 domain names? So whenever she had an idea, oh, I have to register the domain name. It's funny, and he doesn't mind me talking about this. Joe Polish, good friend of mine, and the owner of Genius Network, he owns, I think he owns like 6,000 or 7,000 domain names, because Joe has an idea every minute. And he registers all these domain names, and he really has a bunch of really cool domain names. But for him, that's like, I don't know, 50,000 a year. And so he invested over $1 million in just extending domain names that he probably, I know for sure that 99.9% he will never use. But it's just so hard to get rid of them because, I mean, this is a cool domain name. I can really build something cool on this domain name. And trust me, I owned a hosting and domain name company, and I owned a lot of different domains. And I'm down to maybe 12 domain names, which includes the names of my kids, their domain names, and my Eelco.nl and .com but I used to buy and sell a lot of domain names. That was the beginning of my business. Going back to my client, let's say 1,200 domain names. And then I was like, no, let's sit down and let's just delete, because you'll never, ever, ever gonna use these domain names. And we have this weird idea that what we created up until this far is a safety net, is a foundation, is a bedding for the future. And it's very hard for people to get rid of stuff. It's very hard for people, for example, to get rid of domain names. It's very hard to get rid of, what I'm talking about earlier, the products that we created, because we feel that where we are right now, this is those things, they are the foundation of where we are today. But that's a false belief. It's simply not true. In most of the cases, it's not true. So for her to delete, and we went down from 1,200 domain names to, I think, 10 domain names, or maybe 15 or whatever. She came to my office, she printed out all the domain names, and we just started crossing. Would you buy this again if this one didn't extend? Or if you wouldn't have this one? And it was no, up until we had like 50 left, and then we had to make the difficult decisions and delete. And all of a sudden she had like, I don't know, 13 domain names left, which saves like $1,200 a month. But not just the $1,200 a month, it also saves up a lot of mental bandwidth, because you don't all of a sudden, Joe also says, sometimes the best way to complete a project is to drop it. And for her to get rid of all of those domain names, it's her completing that project. So that way you become lighter and lighter and lighter. So get rid of as many possessions as you can. I saw somewhere, I'm not sure if it's true, but that we own like 30,000 things on average. So could be, I don't know, could be like 15 pencils is like 15 units, or like, I don't know, 500 napkins is 500 units. But we own like 30,000 pieces of stuff on average. Again, no clue if that's true. But we own a lot of stuff. If you can get that down to like 2,000, that's a game changer. That's a game changer. And there's so much to say. So, and this is what I wanted to refer in the beginning, but I sort of like lost my train of thought, is that if we're talking about being enlightened, if you have a lot of heaviness around you, practically, it's so much harder to become enlightened spiritually. But if you release a lot of practical stuff and practical problems, like earthly problems or earthly stuff, it's easier to eventually become more enlightened. If you, for example, have a home and it's very cluttered, it's a lot of stuff everywhere. If there's more stuff entering the home, I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's a mess already. So more mess, it doesn't really matter. But it makes us heavier. But if you do the opposite and if you get rid of most of the stuff and you clean out your home, all of a sudden, if something messy is getting in, you notice it because it doesn't belong there. And the same goes with like your spiritual being. Like if you are free of triggers, trauma, negative beliefs, negative self-talk, and something enters your system, you capture it, you see it, and you can get rid of it immediately. However, if you're in a very toxic situation and you keep feeding that toxic situation, you're drinking a lot, or maybe you're overeating, or you're not sleeping well, or maybe you're smoking weed, or whatever it is. And I'm not judging these things. However, if you are cluttered, if you have toxicity in your system, it's just way harder to become enlightened or more enlightened. So the saying that I used to say often during my events is, you don't want to solve practical problems in a spiritual way. I used to believe in that 100%. Now I believe in that like 80%. So there's a lot of practical problems that we should simply solve in a practical way. Sometimes, or oftentimes actually, there's also some practical problems that you can relieve or get rid of in a spiritual way. But oftentimes it's just boots on the ground and get the work done that you need to be doing to become lighter and get rid of stuff. So number 9, be possessions poor and cash rich. Number 10 is stop telling your story. And especially the story that is not serving you anymore. If you want to become lighter, if you want to go to another level. So I did an event in New York last year, and we had 40 or 50 Dutch people flying to New York for a 3-day event, and it was really, really cool. And on the first evening, I rented out a rooftop in Manhattan. And so we were there with all the clients, and we just had our first day, and everybody's excited and everybody's happy, and we're having a drink and this and that. And I get in a conversation with one of my clients, and I've never spoken to her before. I've seen her a bunch of times, like during my events, but I've never spoken to her. And so we're on the rooftop, and I asked her, like, what do you do? Which is a simple question. And then she started to tell me not what she was doing. She was telling me her life story. And her life story was a story of a woman who overcame a lot of stuff. And it was a very intriguing and very interesting story that she was telling me. So I was like, okay, this is really, really interesting. And it took her like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to tell her story based on the question, what do you do? So she could have told me like, okay, I'm a coach, or this or no. She decided in that moment, well, 20 years ago, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and I did this, and this, and this, and this. So she told me her whole story. And then she asked me the day after, like, Eelco, do you have advice for me? And I told her, Like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want? Well, I want to go to another level. I want to become new. This. Okay. Well, it's very simple. And you're probably not going to like my suggestion. But my suggestion is stop telling your story. If a random person asks you, what do you do? And I might not be a random person, but if I ask you, what do? You come up with this whole story of what happened to you and of your whole past. And you identify with that story. This story, if you are so profound with explaining the story, you probably have told it hundreds of times. And by keep on repeating that story, you really start to believe that whole story. It becomes a part of who you are. But it is not who you are. You are not your story. However, we think that we are our story. We think we are what happened to us. If you identify to things in life that happen to you, yes, then it becomes who you are. But it's not your nature. You weren't born this way. Like, it's not like your real story. Your real story is who you truly are in your essence. But you keep on repeating the old story, and you will keep on dragging that story forever. So I asked her, like, what would happen if this is the moment you would never, ever, ever, ever tell this story again to nobody? And she looked at me like, well, that's going to be really hard because I'm very used to telling this story. Yeah, but what would happen if you would never, ever, ever, ever tell this story to anybody again? And she's like, wow, this is such a relief. And I say this, if you have trauma or if you're highly triggered about things that happened in the past, and you like, yes, get help around that. Very important, because you want to liberate yourself from that as well. But for her, like, that story, it was so easy for her to share that story. And so there's no triggers or trauma anymore. For me to tell her, like, okay, just quit telling that story, I felt comfortable asking that or saying that, because I know, like, it's not serving you anymore. This is not about neglecting who you are. This is not about neglecting trauma. It's just simply about not repeating the story anymore, because then you identify with it, and then it's very hard to really become or go to the next level. So stop telling your stories. Stop telling the stories that are not serving you anymore. If you went through it, if you dealt with the emotions, why tell the story? Just get rid of it and become newer. Number 11, and we talked about this before as well, is remove friction proactively. So take your journal, and on a consistent basis, write down, like, where's the friction? Like, where's the friction in my life? And it could be anything. It could be that you haven't opened your mail in the last 2 weeks and it's in your system. Or it could be that you have to have a conversation with somebody. Or it could be that that you've been drinking too much lately. Or it could be that like, you don't have a clue about your finances. Or it could be anything. If you want to become lighter, it's very simple. Remove friction proactively. What I do all the time, is I go through my my home, and I just grab a bag, and I just proactively look, oh, what can I delete? What can I get rid of? So, because everything that I don't want to have in my environment, if I proactively get rid of that, that is making me lighter. I'm not talking about garbage. I'm talking about physical possessions that I paid for or I received or whatever. What can I get rid of? Same with, could be like, and I'm not great at this, but like the pictures on your phone. Again, like, I'm the worst example with this because I think I probably have like 50,000 pictures on my phone. But can you get rid of that as well? Like, where's the friction in your life? It could be big or could be small. Can you proactively remove the friction? And if so, do it, because the more you do that, the freer and lighter you will become. Number 12 is stop withholding your love. So we're talking about how to become lighter. And I had a conversation with a good friend of mine. This is now maybe 5 years ago, and he used to be my coach slash mentor. We became friends. He still sort of like is my coach slash mentor. Um, and I was talking about two people, and two people that I have had a relationship with, business wise, and I wasn't able to close the loop in a good way, and it was a it was an emotional thing for me because those people were very close to me, and life happens, things happened, um, and I felt betrayed in that um, in that whole uh, um, in that whole scenario with those two people, and still to this date, when I look back at that whole situation, I I'm quite certain that like yeah, I'm quite certain about my case and a lot of common sense. And I was like, I don't think we should be in each other's lives anymore because this is just too much. That's sort of like the summary of that whole situation. But I felt I'm not saying that I am betrayed because that's also like if you talk about lying to yourself or um, telling stories. Like I'm not saying that I am betrayed, but it was a feeling that I have of betrayal. And I was talking with my friend, and I told him like, yeah, I gave them everything. Like I literally gave them everything. I gave them this and this and this, and I yeah, I really gave them everything. And and then he was like, I know I told him I was giving them all of my love, and the good friend that he is and the great coach that he is. So I literally said that I gave them all of my love. And then he said, did you give them all of your love or were you withholding your love? And then I realized like, in that situation, in that relation with those two people, I didn't give them all of my love. I was actually withholding my love for whatever reason. It can be to feel more safe or to not be, not have certain feelings or not be protective or whatever. But I was definitely not giving all of my love. I was actually withholding my love, which was such a light bulb moment. And I feel that if whenever you feel dark, heavy, oftentimes it is because we are withholding our life because we are afraid to be touched in a negative way or in a traumatic way. And maybe you have been in situations where you were very open, and by being very open, you felt all the love and all the life and all the energy, and then you got hurt, and so it almost feels like you've been punished for being open and being loving. And however, I do feel and I think also know that the more that you are able to love and give love, the lighter you will be. And the more that you're withholding your love, the darker you will become. And so it's a very brave thing to actually love openly and deeply. And the more that you do that, the lighter you will feel. The more love that you can also give, but also receive, the lighter you will feel. So and I can talk about this for a long, long time, but I think it's very, very important. Number 13 is remove and we're going like spiritual, tactical, practical, all the things, is remove every layer of complexity. So, for example, if you want to have a lighter business, just dig into your business. Which processes do you have? Which systems do you have? Which steps do people need to go through before they become a client? What steps do you need to go through before you send out an email? Whatever it is, like, can you remove every layer of complexity in your business, but also in your life? And the more you can remove, the better. Number 14 is minimize socially accepted addictions as much as possible. When I'm talking about socially accepted addictions, I'm talking about, for example, drinking. Like it's a socially accepted addiction, like having a glass of wine. That's very, very normal. It's scrolling, like scrolling on your phone. Like nobody would say like, oh, what's your screen time? Could be like eating a lot of processed foods. That's a socially accepted addiction. Like processed food is highly addictive. Could be a lot of different things that are normal but are not natural. You will become so much lighter if you decide to minimize or maybe eradicate socially accepted addictions as much as possible. So I wrote a book about this earlier this year. It's called Internet Fasting: How to Switch Off the Internet for multiple hours per day, sometimes even like most of the hours per day, and being online for only a few hours per day. I mean, the internet use, like using the internet, being on socials, checking YouTube, checking mails, whatever, all that stuff, it didn't exist 30 years ago, but now everybody is so addicted, and it's really a socially accepted addiction. So minimize that as much as possible. Number 15, and I talked about this previous, is stop hating yourself. So if you have negative self-talk, if you feel bad about yourself, if you have this belief that there's something wrong with you, stop it, because there's nothing wrong with you. You are not enough. And I won't go into a lot of detail right now, but I would highly suggest watching the video on my YouTube channel, and it's literally called Stop Hating Yourself. It's and I'll put a link in the description, because I really feel it's important. What I'm teaching in that video, and I'm helping Justin go through a process, this is the foundation of becoming way lighter on a personal / spiritual / emotional level. And because it's so hard, like if you feel heavy, if you feel dark, it's so hard to actually become lighter, because where do you start? Like, do you need to meditate? Do you need to do like a certain therapy? Do you need to go to a seminar? Do you need to have whatever? I feel and I believe that video, I think it's like a 15-minute video or 20-minute video, that gives you the key to unlock so much more freedom. And it's very tactical. It's just 2 different steps. And it's not complicated, and it can be very, very liberating. So check that video on my YouTube channel. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that. Now, number 16 is have a liberating business model. Very simple. If you have a business model that if you would grow, you would have less freedom, you have the wrong business model, because it will get heavier the more successful you become. But if you have a business model where the more you sell, the more freedom you will have, you have a liberating business model. Most entrepreneurs, they don't have a liberating business model. They have a business model that if they would grow, they would have less freedom and less time. And they wonder why for them it's so hard to actually grow the business. Well, it's very simple. They know inside their system that if they would grow, it'll come back to them. And if you have that friction in your system, you're not going to grow your business, because you don't want to do something destructive to yourself. Number 17 is have a phenomenal physical environment. Like the place that you live, it has such impact on how you feel. That's again why I'm such a big fan of renting, is that you have to try certain homes and live at certain homes to really feel like this is who I am and this is what I want. But you know this, and you've experienced this many times. Could be in your home, but also when you're traveling. Like, this hotel room feels amazing. This hotel room, I just really feel crappy in this hotel room. Like, your environment is so important. And if you can, I say this, but I don't mean this actually. I say if you can afford this, get a phenomenal physical environment. But I would also consider, like, if you can't afford it, still do it. Like, invest more into a phenomenal physical environment. I have conversation with my friend John about this, John Radcliffe. He's good friends with Richard Branson, and I've been to that place, like Necker Island. I've been there multiple times, and Richard bought Necker Island 50 years ago, I think. and he bought it, and he didn't have money, so he buys an island with no money. Um, he had a loan, I think, from his aunt for like $80,000. He bought the island for 80,000 or 130,000 bucks. Ridiculous. It's worth hundreds of millions right now. But he bought it. It was just a rock, but it's the most magical place on earth, and it's unbelievable. And again, like first time I went there was 2013, and I've been there a bunch of times, and like there's nothing like Necker Island. And John, when he talks about Richard and Necker Island, he says that most people think that Richard bought the island because he is successful. I believe that he is successful because he lives on the island. The place, Necker Island, it's such an amazing, beautiful, spiritual, big vision place. And I had a conversation with him in South Africa about like, how do you make decisions? And he was like, well, one of the advantages is that I live on Necker Island, so I'm not thinking about like all the small stuff, because literally my businesses are far away from where I actually live. And because I live there, I make better decisions because it's less. I don't see the small stuff. I don't see the small stuff that could actually withhold me of making bigger decisions, for example. And I feel amazing here. So for him, like he works out 6 hours per day, 7 days a week. He swims, kite surfing, biking, walking, working out, tennis. Like it's a phenomenal physical environment. Another story, super quick. When COVID happened, there was a family on Necker Island, and Necker Island is very expensive to rent. I think it's $1 million a week, I think, to rent the island. The guy, he rents parts of the island with a family, then lockdown all over the world, and they tell him like, well, you have to leave the island, or you can stay, but it's, you can stay on Necker for the next period, but it's going to be highly expensive. So he decides, you know what, I will stay here on Necker with my family until this whole pandemic is over. So he stays on Necker, I think 9 months. And then at the end, he had to pay an invoice of $9 million by staying on the island for like 9 months, something like that. And he was like, yeah, this was the best investment of my life because I made so much more money while on the island because I was just in this phenomenal physical environment. And I just made way more than the 9 million, and made way more than if I would go back to London and in my home where I was feeling like caged, for example. So think about this. Like, if you would live in a physical phenomenal environment, would you make more money and would you make less money? And if you know that if you would live in a phenomenal physical environment and you would make more money, why won't you do it? Why won't you do it? I think it's an amazing idea, and just I feel so different if I am in a physical amazing environment. I'm not talking about luxury. I just mentioned Necker Island. Necker is not that luxurious. I mean, it is, but it's not. Like it's a rock. There's mosquitoes. There's wind. There's like it's not like the Waldorf Astoria. But how do you feel where you live? And if you feel amazing, awesome. But if you don't feel amazing, reconsider. Number 18, remove recurring meetings. Just looking at my calendar. And looking at my calendar, I have no meetings. So tomorrow, I look at my calendar here. And the only meeting I have is with my trainer in the morning. It's amazing. I love it. I can't wait for tomorrow. Wake up, no meetings. It's awesome. So remove the recurring meetings. Can you get your meetings in half? And also I have a video on my YouTube channel. It's called Clean Out Your Calendar. I would highly suggest watch that video as well, Clean Out Your Calendar, where I teach you how you can actually clean out your calendar. And I go through a multi-step process on how you can actually do this. So there's multiple ways you can just do your meetings in half. Like, okay, instead of every week, we'll meet every other week. You can do it asynchronous. So instead of like having a meeting, doing it through voice notes, you can simply delete the meeting. I'm allergic to meetings, so um, so can you remove recurring meetings? Yes or no? And I know that you can, but are you willing to do it? And doing that, you look at your calendar, there's way more space. Also, check my video on white space. I have such an amazing video on my YouTube channel. It's called White Space. Check out that video. It's all about having a clear calendar as well. Just do it. Number 19, double down on your unique ability. This is a phrase by my friend Dan Sullivan. Unique ability, like what is something that you are so good at that it's so easy for you? So what is something that's so easy for you and you're so good at it and it doesn't really take a lot of time and energy, but other people can never replicate it because it's really your unique ability. And oftentimes we don't see what we are great at because it's easy for us. Yeah, because it's easy for us. I was about to tell all the things that I'm so amazing at, that are so easy for me. But for example, for me, I can't help myself. In the moment, coaching, for example, give me a group of entrepreneurs and me in the moment coaching. It's the easiest thing for me. It's the easiest thing for me. But honestly, I think there's not a lot of people that are better than me at that. I don't think there's a lot of coaches that are better than me at coaching entrepreneurs. That's just my belief. And it's easy for me, and there's so much value there. So for example, that's a thing that I can and should do way more, and I'm doing it way more. So if you look at my YouTube channel, you see moments where I'm coaching entrepreneurs, but that's something that I can do. It's just too easy for me. All it requires from me is my presence in the moment, and that's it. So that's one of my unique abilities, and I should double down on that as well. And I tend to believe that me teaching certain ideas that are my unique ideas is also my unique ability. And it's easy for me. Like this presentation that I'm sharing with you, it took me maybe 30 minutes to prepare, maybe an hour. To think it through and to create this amazing PowerPoint. And now, obviously, I need to present these ideas. But that's also a part of my unique ability. And if I am honest with myself, in the last 20 years, I haven't done it that much. I mean, if people look from the outside, like, oh, Eelco, you've been very profound and prolific in the last 20 years, at least prolific. But if I'm honest with myself, it was just whatever. But now I feel like, no, I really have to do this, or I get to do this, and I want to do this. So what's your unique ability? What's super easy for you, and how can you double down on that? It's super light, but very expensive and profitable oftentimes. Number 20 is, and also this, check the video, stop hating yourself, is you release your samskaras. So samskara, if I explain it well, and maybe I won't, or maybe I don't, but life happens to us. And yes, we have big traumas, capital T traumas, but we also have imprints. So I don't know, it could be you go to Mexico and you get sick because you ate chicken that wasn't cooked well. If you go back to that place where you got really sick and you had a flu or whatever, that's might not be the biggest trauma. For some people it is, but might not be the biggest trauma, but that's like an imprint. And okay, so this thing happened in Mexico, and now there's this certain imprint. So man, I'm not going to Mexico anymore because something happened there, and because I ate the wrong chicken. That's an example of a samskara. Or for example, you give a presentation, and during this presentation, everything goes wrong. So you have a stain on your pants. You start to stutter. You start to sweat. Whatever. It's just a really bad experience. It's not a big trauma, but it's a bad experience. Okay, I'm never gonna speak again because I don't want this to happen to me again. These are like imprints in your system that are not really heavy. However, if we don't release those imprints, we become heavier and heavier and heavier, and we start to believe those things. So yes, I'm not going to speak in public anymore, and yeah, I'm not going to Mexico anymore, or whatever. So what you do, and again, watch the video, is you just simply, you don't need to go to a psychiatrist. You don't need to have therapy for this in most of the cases. Again, trauma, different example, different situation, but like life happening to you, things that are uncomfortable or not nice or whatever, you want to simply look at it like, okay, this is my belief. It's my belief that if I go to Mexico, I get sick. And if you look at it, it's like, let me just not eat the chicken anymore, whatever. Or you have this belief like, yeah, if I speak in public, everything will go wrong. And again, stop lying to yourself. Like, might not be true, and maybe it wasn't even that bad, and maybe this is part of my gift or part of my calling. So what you do with releasing your samskaras is those BS beliefs that we have, we want to dissolve them. We just want to release them. We don't want to fix them. We don't want to like change them. We just want to release them. And again, watch the video, stop hating yourself, and also watch the video from Depressed to Being Blessed, also my YouTube channel. This is where I explain this whole idea of releasing your samskaras and how you can actually do this. Okay, the next one is one that I might love the most from all of these tips, is the following: is create a new monthly playlist on your Spotify. So we get into these algorithms of life. So when it comes to music, I love music. I always say, like, I have a brain for business and a heart for music. And so whenever I hear a cool song, I put it on my playlist, obviously. And we all do this. And so I have my playlist with, like, I don't know, 500 songs. And if I press play, a random song pops up. And it's cool. It's cool music. However, it's the same stuff all the time. And I don't know. It's just the old you. Like, it's like what you have been adding to your playlist for years, and that's your playlist. Or maybe you have certain vibes playlist. Oh, summer vibes, or hip hop, or classic, or meditation, or whatever. You have certain categories of playlists. That's cool, but still it's the same stuff, and it's also old stuff. I got this idea from Aline, which was my trainer, my personal trainer, and she was like, every month I start a new playlist on my Spotify, and by doing this, I can go back to a certain month and I can feel that month. So for example, June 2024, this is actually when I started my playlist, I had an amazing month. It was I felt free, I felt light, I felt amazing, I felt fun, I felt playful, I felt all of these things. It was just that period. And that's when I started my playlist, and I have an June 2024 playlist. So what I'm doing is I'm going through life. I'm somewhere, I'm feeling amazing, and they play this amazing song, and I Shazam it. So Shazam actually picks up the audio and it shows you which song it is. The cool thing with Shazam is it puts in a library, so then you can put it in your Spotify. And now today it's August 2025, August 25, 2026, and I have over 2 years of monthly playlist. And so, for example, last year I was on Mosquito Island in March 2025, and it was so amazing, and I had so many profound breakthroughs, and it was just a vibe. And if I want to go back to that vibe, I just go to March 2025. And there's also certain months where I was not in the best place, and if I go to that month, I'd rather not listen to it. So creating a new monthly playlist, it's such an amazing way to not carry the old stuff with you to the new, but you can actually compartmentalize it by the months, and you can go back to certain months and just listen to it, but you start fresh every month. And this, again, is the same thing. You don't carry your past with you into the future. So start a new playlist every month. I have my playlist. I put a link in the description. I have a Google Doc with all of my playlists, so I'll put the link there as well. Don't judge me for my music taste. Just don't do it. Okay, awesome. We'll go to number 22, and that's love your past. Love your past. I say this more often, is you don't know. You know what's good and what's wrong. As a human being, you know what's good and wrong, but you don't know what is a mistake and what wasn't a mistake. So, for example, let's say, so one of my triggers is so I'm in Amsterdam right now, and if I go to Paris, which is like a 7-hour drive, I get in the car, it's 2 p.m., and the GPS says, oh, you will arrive at 9 p.m., and I'll be like, we'll see, Mr. GPS. And because I have one goal in life, then it's okay to crush that time. So, and then you're driving, and all of a sudden you have the wrong turn. And I can get really upset about this. I hate, like, getting the wrong turn, and all of a sudden, like, the whole GPS is messed up and everything, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it does trigger me a little bit also because I have no sense of direction. Like, I'm the worst when it comes to sense of direction. In life, yes. With traffic, no. It's not in my system. It just, so I can be a little bit judgmental about that part of me. And whenever I take a wrong turn, a wrong exit, of course, in the moment, I'm like, and then I'm like, maybe this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Maybe, I might get to my destination 5 or 10 minutes later, but maybe this is the best thing that ever happened to me. You just don't know if a mistake is really a mistake. Like, if you are an overall happy human being, if you're like pretty content with where you are as a person and in your life, and grateful for where you are right now in this moment, how can you hate things from the past? Because if those things wouldn't have happened, you wouldn't be where you are right now. If I wouldn't have made the wrong turn like 6 months ago or whatever, I wouldn't be doing this presentation right now. If I wouldn't have made the quote-unquote mistake in business. So if I would go back to 2008 where I was stressed out and couldn't pay my invoices, couldn't pay my taxes, had all these people like the story that I started with today, I can look at that as a negative thing. But I'm grateful for that happened, including everything that was hard, because that gave me the ability and the story to help you. I wouldn't have had this story if that wouldn't have happened to me. So, and I say this with compassion. If there are certain things in your past that was just so big, so like, and we all come up with things that are too brutal almost. We understand what those things are. But overall, can you love your past? And can you really accept that if the past wouldn't have been the past, you wouldn't be where you are right now? So maybe it was just divine intervention all the time. And if you can really have that belief and know that my past was the past, but it was for me because I'm right now where I'm at right now, which might not be an ideal situation, might not be where you want to go, but even if you're not in an ideal situation, how amazing is that you can create a new future? So are you able to love your past, yes or no? And if you keep on hating your past and also keep on repeating the past, it's very, very hard to really have an amazing future. So last one for today is you're as sick as your secrets. This is also something that I can talk about for a long, long time. And I did a a poll in my Telegram channel. If you want to get access to my Telegram channel, check the links in the description. I did a poll in my Telegram channel. I was like, I asked, like, do you have a secret in your system that you haven't revealed to anybody yet that feels heavy? Something like that. And a really high number of people uh, actually have a secret in their system that they've never revealed to anybody, not even their partner or their parents or their friends. It's something that they're highly ashamed of, and they they're not willing to share that with the world. I'm not saying that you have to share all of your secrets with the world, but if you have stuff in your system that you've never shared because there's certain guilt around it, or shame around it, or judgment around it, I have this belief, and I think this comes from the 12-step program from AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is that if you keep that stuff, and especially, for example, if you're an alcoholic, most alcoholics, they have done stuff that they're not proud of because of the alcohol. And the things that they are not proud of, they have to share it in those groups, because if you don't share it, it will become who you are. You will get ill. You will be as sick as your secret. So if you have certain secrets in your system, you want to release those. You want to get rid of those. You want to share those with somebody who can really hold space for you and that you can actually trust. Could be a therapist, could be a really good friend, could be like your partner or whatever. But I truly believe that this is something that's so important. And I've experienced this with people in my life, that I was a safe space for them, and they were sharing with me things that they've never shared before, and they felt so much lighter afterwards. And I have one person who tells me, like, you really remove like this big heavy weight in my system, and just for you being able to hold space and just really listening to me and not judging me and just holding space, created for this person a completely new reality. And so this person like has a different life now because doesn't need to carry that secret with this person anymore. So that's another idea for you to, like, are you carrying stuff with you that you keep to yourself but you are uncomfortable with sharing? See if you can find somebody who can hold space for that and share that with a person. So going back to the beginning, just because it's normal doesn't mean it's natural. Like, a lot of stuff that's normal nowadays, it's not natural. I would highly advise you to go back to a more natural state of being. I really believe that you in your own energy is the most attractive thing there is, and it's not easy. If you're willing to do the hard things, life becomes easier, and if you're only willing to do the easy things, life becomes hard. And I believe that the light way is the right way.